Imagine a man whose voice alone could steady a trembling nation, whose unyielding resolve transformed near defeat into historic triumph, and whose pen wielded as much power as any standing army. He was not born a hero, nor did he inherit an easy path to greatness. Instead, he forged his destiny through relentless ambition, profound political missteps, and an almost mythical capacity for resilience. This is the extraordinary reality of a statesman who stood alone against the darkest tide of the 20th century, refusing to surrender when surrender seemed the only rational choice. His journey from a rebellious, academically struggling aristocrat to the undisputed leader of the free world is a masterclass in courage, strategic foresight, and the transformative power of conviction. To understand his legacy is to understand the very mechanics of modern leadership, a landscape permanently altered by a man who proved that history is not merely recorded by the victors, but actively shaped by those willing to endure when others would yield. The genesis of this unparalleled political phenomenon began in the autumn of 1874 at Blenheim Palace, the sprawling ancestral estate of the Dukes of Marlborough. Born Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill into one of Britain's most prominent, but financially strained aristocratic families, his early environment was defined by grandeur shadowed by emotional distance and familial neglect. His father, a brilliant but erratic politician, and his mother, an American socialite whose beauty and charm captivated European high society, were largely absent figures in his daily upbringing. Raised primarily by nannies and boarding schools, he developed a fierce independence and a deep-seated hunger for recognition. His academic record was consistently poor, marked by a profound dislike for classical studies and rigid disciplinary structures. Yet beneath this outward mediocrity lay a brilliant, highly observant mind that thrived on military history, strategic analysis, and the written word. He compensated for his classroom failures by devouring books, teaching himself geography, history, and literature, and cultivating a relentless drive to prove his worth through action rather than pedigree. Determined to forge a path that traditional academia had denied him, he entered the Royal Military College at Sandhurst, where his natural aptitude for strategy and physical endurance finally found a structured outlet. Graduating with respectable marks, he was commissioned into the cavalry and immediately sought out conflict, viewing war not as a tragedy, but as a laboratory for ambition and a stage for distinction. His early military career was characterized by bold, often reckless journalism and combat participation across the globe. He reported from Cuba, fought alongside Spanish troops, witnessed the brutal realities of colonial warfare in India, and survived a daring cavalry charge during the Sudan campaign. His true breakthrough arrived during the Second Boer War in South Africa, where he was captured as a war correspondent and executed a daring, highly publicized escape that captivated British newspapers and instantly transformed him into a national celebrity. This carefully orchestrated rise from prisoner to hero provided the political capital he needed to launch his parliamentary career. Elected to Parliament at the age of 26, he quickly established himself as a formidable, highly independent voice within the Conservative Party, though his ideological flexibility and sharp critiques of party leadership frequently alienated his own allies. He championed progressive reforms, advocated for social welfare initiatives, and demonstrated an uncanny ability to anticipate geopolitical shifts long before they materialized. His rapid ascent through ministerial ranks seemed unstoppable until the outbreak of the First World War, when his ambitious naval strategy culminated in the disastrous Gallipoli campaign. The catastrophic failure resulted in massive casualties, shattered his political reputation, and forced his resignation from government. Rather than retreating into obscurity, he voluntarily returned to the front lines, commanding a battalion in the trenches of France, enduring the same mud, artillery, and deprivation as the men he led. This period of profound humiliation and personal sacrifice forged a deeper, more resilient understanding of leadership, teaching him the heavy cost of strategic miscalculation and the absolute necessity of accountability. The interwar years became a period of intense political isolation, yet also one of extraordinary intellectual and creative productivity. Excluded from major ministerial roles and frequently criticized by his own party for his uncompromising stances, he turned to writing, journalism, and painting as outlets for his restless energy. He authored monumental historical works, including a sweeping multi-volume biography of his ancestor and a comprehensive history of the First World War, establishing himself as one of the most respected prose stylists of his generation. Simultaneously, he emerged as one of the few voices in British politics consistently warning against the rising threat of Nazi Germany. While mainstream leaders pursued appeasement and disarmament, he delivered relentless parliamentary critiques, analyzing German rearmament, exposing diplomatic vulnerabilities, and demanding military preparedness. His warnings were largely dismissed as warmongering alarmism, and he found himself increasingly marginalized, yet he refused to soften his convictions or abandon his analysis. This decade of political exile was not a period of stagnation, but a crucible that refined his strategic vision, deepened his historical perspective, and prepared him for the moment when Britain would desperately need a leader who understood the precise nature of the threat. The outbreak of the Second World War in 1939 initially placed him in the role of First Lord of the Admiralty, but the rapid collapse of military campaigns and the failure of the existing government created a political vacuum that only he could fill. In the spring of 1940, he was appointed Prime Minister, assuming control of a nation teetering on the brink of invasion, economic collapse, and psychological exhaustion. He immediately recognized that victory would not be achieved through conventional military tactics alone, but through the mobilization of national will. He transformed the machinery of government into a tightly coordinated war cabinet, streamlined industrial production, and forged critical alliances with global powers. His most potent weapon, however, was his unparalleled mastery of rhetoric and psychological mobilization. Through carefully crafted broadcasts, parliamentary addresses, and public statements, he articulated a clear, uncompromising vision of resistance, framing the conflict not as a territorial dispute, but as a moral struggle between civilization and tyranny. He refused to entertain negotiations or entertain defeatist rhetoric, consistently projecting an aura of unshakable confidence that steadied public morale during the darkest periods of aerial bombardment and military retreat. His leadership during the war was characterized by relentless work habits, strategic micromanagement, and a willingness to challenge established military doctrines when necessary. He maintained direct correspondence with field commanders, demanded detailed intelligence reports, and personally oversaw the development of new weapons systems and logistical strategies. He played a crucial role in coordinating the Allied response to the North African campaign, the invasion of Italy, and the meticulous planning of the Normandy landings. His ability to navigate complex diplomatic relationships with American and Soviet leaders ensured that the Allied coalition remained cohesive despite profound ideological differences and competing strategic priorities. He understood that military victory required economic endurance, technological innovation, and unwavering public support, and he systematically addressed each pillar through decisive policy implementation and transparent communication. The turning point of the conflict was not a single battle, but a sustained campaign of attrition, intelligence dominance, and industrial mobilization, all of which he orchestrated with meticulous attention to detail and an uncompromising focus on ultimate victory. Following the defeat of Nazi Germany and the conclusion of hostilities in Europe, the British electorate made a stunning political decision, voting him and his party out of power in favor of a Labour government focused on domestic reconstruction and social reform. Rather than expressing bitterness or withdrawing from public life, he gracefully accepted the result, assuming the role of leader of the opposition and continuing to shape national policy from the parliamentary benches. He remained deeply engaged in global affairs, delivering landmark speeches that articulated the emerging tensions of the post-war era and warning against the expansion of authoritarian influence in Eastern Europe. His conceptualization of the ideological division between Western democracies and Soviet-controlled territories provided a foundational framework for understanding the Cold War, influencing diplomatic strategies and defense policies for decades. When his party regained power in the early 1950s, he returned to the premiership, focusing on nuclear deterrence, decolonization management, and the stabilization of Britain's post-war economy. His second term was marked by pragmatic governance, a recognition of shifting global power dynamics, and a continued commitment to maintaining Britain's role as a central pillar of international diplomacy. Throughout his public career, he maintained a profound dedication to literary and historical scholarship, viewing writing not as a secondary pursuit, but as an essential component of leadership and legacy. His published works spanned military history, political analysis, memoir, and biographical narrative, each characterized by meticulous research, vivid prose, and a deep understanding of human motivation and institutional behavior. This extraordinary body of written work earned him the Nobel Prize in Literature, a rare honor that recognized his ability to elevate political and historical narrative into enduring art. He understood that power without perspective is fleeting, and he consistently used his platform to advocate for education, historical literacy, and the preservation of democratic institutions. His personal life was marked by a long, devoted marriage that provided emotional stability amidst the relentless pressures of public service. He was a father who balanced public duty with private affection, and a friend who maintained lifelong correspondence with intellectuals, artists, and political figures across the globe. His hobbies, particularly painting and bricklaying, served as vital outlets for stress, offering him moments of quiet focus and creative restoration that sustained his mental resilience during periods of extreme national crisis. The legacy of this extraordinary statesman extends far beyond wartime victories and parliamentary achievements. He fundamentally redefined the relationship between leadership and public trust, demonstrating that transparency, moral clarity, and unwavering resolve can mobilize entire populations during periods of existential threat. He proved that intellectual rigor, historical awareness, and rhetorical precision are not secondary to political power, but essential components of it. His career was not without controversy or criticism, as his imperial views, strategic miscalculations, and uncompromising temperament frequently sparked intense debate. Yet his willingness to adapt, his capacity for self-reflection, and his ultimate commitment to democratic principles ensured that his contributions outweighed his shortcomings. From the grand, echoing halls of Blenheim Palace to the fortified bunkers of wartime London, his journey remains a profound testament to the power of perseverance, strategic vision, and the unyielding belief that civilization must be defended by those willing to stand firm when others falter. He did not merely navigate history, he shaped its trajectory, leaving behind a blueprint of leadership that continues to inform political strategy, public communication, and the enduring struggle for democratic resilience. His name remains synonymous with defiance, intellect, and the unwavering conviction that even in the darkest hours, courage and clarity can illuminate the path forward.